Hey, good evening, everybody. I'm Johnny Congdon, filling in for Jeff Spiegel. Guys, this week at the NFL Combine, former Texas wide receiver Xavier Worthy was clocked at a lightning time of 4.21 seconds on the 40-yard dash. So that begs the question, what would be your 40 time if you were up in Indy this week?
12.5.
12.5? I don't know what the time would be, but they could use a sundial to time it. I can tell you that.
Hey, I'd be the fastest to the medical tent. You're in the zone.
From the ABC 3340 sports team, this is The Zone.
Make better decisions down the stretch. You know, I thought they were the quicker team, to a lot of loose balls throughout the night. If you're going to win a championship, there's championship-level plays that have to be made that we didn't make.
The old saying still rings true. Offense sells tickets. Defense wins championships. And last night inside Coleman Coliseum, there's little doubt in my mind that the stronger, smarter, tougher team prevailed. Guys, I was courtside shooting the game last night. And when I came out of that building last night, I was wondering if that Tennessee team is the best in the nation. Am I overreacting a little?
No, I still think when everything's going right, Purdue's the best team in the country. But I think Tennessee is right up there behind them because, listen, the best offense Barnes has had. They are as tough physically as any team you'll see. And again, they got everybody who's been there for like 24 years. I mean, it's just one of the most experienced teams in the country.
Did you watch UConn today?
Yeah.
They're pretty good, too.
Yeah.
Listen, I got no problem with the argument that Tennessee's the best team in the nation. It's just an experienced group of veterans that do not crack. Barnes is one of the best regular season coaches we've ever seen in college basketball. Just team after team that he coaches in the regular season look like this team. He's got a commitment to defense, and this is a better offensive team than he normally has.
Yeah, and speaking of defense, they held Alabama to 9 of 37 from beyond the arc. That's 24% from downtown, the worst percentage at home from deep this season. So is it just as simple as live by the three, die by the three?
No, because they were getting to the basket pretty easily. I mean, it's just that drought at the end that makes it look bad because, 12 points in the last 8 minutes, and they couldn't score from 2 feet in. I think the big problem is they get out physical because the nature of their roster, and they just get worn down. I mean, Mark Sears and Estrada were just gassed at the end.
I think the lack of defense is bigger than the missed threes. I mean, it's easy to say, well, Alabama loses, so they didn't hit enough threes. They had 9. With good enough defense, you can live on 9 threes at home. And they're going to need more than that in any game they play. They just don't play good enough defense to live off 9 threes. It's got to be at least double digits from this point on because of the level of competition their final game against Arkansas.
And speaking of lacking those threes, no Latrell Wrightsell Jr. last night for Bama. That's his 4th missed game with it. It's being described as a head injury. How worried are you if you're an Alabama fan, and how important is he to what Oates wants to do, especially offensively?
Well, they were on real roll when he was in there and he was shooting. And when you have him in the lineup, you've got 5, maybe 6 shooters. So pick your poison. I mean, they're just a better team when he's playing.
Now, without him, you look what they did. 8 threes against Florida. They needed 70 against Kentucky. They didn't get that. They did hit 15 against Ole Miss, but then 9. So in 3 of the games he's played, they've been held under single digits in 3. So I think that just shows you how much they need Wrightsell back.
160 miles down the road, Bruce Pearl and his Auburn Tigers had themselves a score to settle with Chris Jans and Mississippi State after the Bulldogs beat Auburn back in Starkville in late January. The Tigers were back inside the friendly confines of Neville Arena, where they shot 50% as a team and had 4 players score in double digits, thumping the Bulldogs 78-63. What impressed you the most with Auburn's win yesterday at home?
Just the fact they took care of business again. You know, Bruce said it was the best team to come to Neville this year, which I think
shot
is
at Alabama.
Yeah, I
says
think
that
that's
about every team that comes.
But I mean, this is a very good team. They're very well coached. They are tough. They are physical. So I'm impressed by how they control the game.
Yeah, Chris Jans is an excellent coach, obviously, and this was a team I think Auburn could have easily won this game at Starkville as well. This could have been a season sweep. But this team is, again, they protect their home court as well as anybody in the country. The Kentucky side, Kentucky game notwithstanding, this team is almost unbeatable at Neville, and they showed it again yesterday.
Now, when you're a team with Final Four ambitions like Auburn has and the talent to back it up, there are no moral victories. But when they went up to Knoxville and gave Tennessee about as good of a game as any team I've seen up there this year, what goes into your mind if you're an Auburn fan? Do you feel like you're peaking at the right time as you're slowly headed towards conference tournament season?
I don't think they're peaking, but I think they're building momentum again. I think that's just as important because they could have easily gotten blown out just like they did at Florida. So I think it's important that they prove they could play with anybody.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting, the game they played without Jalen Williams, to see what Chad Baker-Mazara did. to see what Aiden Holloway did. And you hope that those guys continue to provide at least some of that. Now, I know Holloway has not, but you hope as Jalen Williams continues to play, those guys contribute some of that. And now you become even a deeper team with the loss of Berman. Berman's given you some moments, and now he's out for the season, unfortunately. But you become a deeper team with more weapons off the bench.
If you had to peg the Achilles heel for this Auburn basketball team as you head into March, what is it?
I think they have some offensive inconsistency. I mean, at times they look like they can't miss, but when they struggle, it becomes a trough, and they just kind of struggle on both ends.
Yeah, I think people will point at guard play and say, it is a guards tournament. Are those guards good enough to win an NCAA tournament? It's the knock on Purdue that Zach Edey is a guy that they normally, you normally don't go through a big guy. So you would say the same about Broome. Can you win a tournament with Broome being your feature player?
Yeah.
No, you probably got to be better in the backcourt.
Now let's look ahead about a week and start previewing the SEC tournament up in Nashville. And for obvious reasons, we dedicate most of our time here to both Alabama and Auburn, but the field in the upcoming tournament is absolutely loaded. Teams like Kentucky, Tennessee, South Carolina, all in the running to win the tournament up in Music City. Guys, I know we still got a week to go before we know all the seeds, but look into your crystal ball and give me your SEC tournament champion.
We're going with Tennessee. I mean, again, they're going to have that home crowd. It still may not rival Kentucky's crowd, but it's going to be huge.
You're right. That's the crazy thing. They're playing in Nashville, and Kentucky will have a home court advantage if those two meet. But Tennessee will feast off that crowd, and they're playing as well as anybody in the conference right now. So I'm with Doug. It's the obvious choice. They're going to be the 1 seed, but I like Tennessee.
You got the obvious teams that are going to be there, the top 4 seeds that will have the bye until Friday. Give me a dark horse that won't have the double bye in the SEC tournament that you think could sneak from behind and maybe win this.
Florida. I think they've kind of turned it on. They've kind of figured things out, and they have a good balanced roster.
Yeah, good offensive team, great rebounding team. This is not a given yet, but Kentucky, I think, will lose to Tennessee in the final regular season game, which could drop them to 5th. And Auburn and South Carolina, Alabama, Tennessee would be in front of them. So if they drop to 5th, I'll take Kentucky.
Now, conference tournament season, for me personally, it's my favorite. It's got that, like, Christmas Eve before Christmas kind of feel. That being said, with the exception of the mid-majors that have the one team that goes, do we feel like we put too much stock into these conference tournaments? You exert yourself trying to win this thing, and by the time you finally have won it, you're exhausted, and a week later, here you go. It's for all the marbles. The NCAA tournament is here. So do we put too much stock into these conference tournaments?
I think the NCAA tournament is all about health and momentum, and I think you can lose momentum and you can gain momentum in the tournament. So I think if you're a safe team like in Auburn, Alabama, Tennessee, you don't have to have a great performance. But if you're going to play 3 games, you want to win it all.
I don't know that there's any empirical evidence on this, but, sometimes you'll watch a conference tournament and a team gets hot and you're like, boy, I like them in the NCAA. They're out in the round of 64. Yeah. Or a team goes out early and then they make a run to the Elite 8. I don't think you can read anything in a conference tournament, so because of that, yeah, we probably put too much emphasis on them.
They say if you want to win your bracket come March, don't watch a single conference tournament game because you get suckered into things like that. Hey, let's pivot to some college football now and discuss the potential for a 14-team playoff, a format that's reportedly already gaining a little momentum. According to CBS Sports, the Big Ten and the SEC are currently pushing for a 14-team model that would not only guarantee 3 automatic bids for each conference, but also reverse the format's first two round buys for each of the league's respective champion. Okay, a 4-team playoff like we've had for the last decade. Now we're getting ready for that 12-team playoff. Now we're hearing things about 14. Are we going too fast here? Is this all too soon?
Yeah, we're going too fast because college football is going too fast. Let's see how the 12-team playoff works. Listen, SEC and Big Ten don't have to reserve spots. They're going to have the spots. They shouldn't be able to reserve, automatic buys just because we're SEC or Big Ten champion. The teams are going to take care of that.
Yeah, and the way they make this power play is they promise the ACC and the Big 12 2 spots. And the ACC and the Big 12 are like, we'll take that, right?
Yeah.
I don't know why we didn't just go to 16 right away.
Right.
Why did we stop at 12? I mean, this was inevitable. You knew as the money starts adding up, nobody's ever going to say, let's just hold right here at 12 and not take more money. They're always going to take more money in college football. Why not just go on to 16, take the money, and be done with it? We're going to get there eventually anyway.
Now, coming up next on The Zone, we'll check in on Auburn football as Hugh Freeze is ready for another quarterback competition. Caleb DeBoer and the Alabama Crimson Tide are ready for his first spring in Tuscaloosa. And it's time to draft some quarterbacks. We'll check in on the NFL Combine up in Indianapolis. Don't you go anywhere. You're watching The Zone.
Every spot is wide open in my mind right now. Now, let me be clear. I think Peyton has done an incredible job since January of taking a leadership role and setting the standard. Do I think it's his to lose? Yes. But he's got to go earn it every day.
Here we go again. Another quarterback competition down the plains. Now, Hugh Freeze saying Thursday that he believes the job is Peyton Thorne's to lose, but with a quarterback's room with names like Holden Geriner, Hank Brown, and the highly touted freshman Walker White, there's no assurances that Thorne is the starter week 1 against Alabama A&M. Okay, guys, I know it's only March. Who do you think wins that quarterback competition down at all?
I still think it's Peyton Thorne. I mean, again, if he gets back to what he was at Michigan State, Auburn fans will be very happy.
Yeah, he's got to develop, obviously. He's got to improve. I do think Peyton Thorne will be the day 1 starter. I think the bigger story is who comes out of spring as the backup, because you want somebody close enough to Thorne that he can push him through the summer and through fall camp, and he's actually a threat to Thorne. That'll make Thorne better.
Walker White, man, he's got a cannon.
I wouldn't surprise me.
I'd like to see more Hank Brown after what we saw in the bowl game.
Now, outside of the quarterbacks, I think the most interesting aspect of spring practice were the additions on the outside, receivers like Cam Coleman and Perry Thompson, because Auburn really hasn't had that go-to playmaker. And for Hugh Freeze's RPO offense, you kind of need a playmaker on the outside. So do you expect both of them to contribute day 1?
Day 1. And I think this is much bigger than the quarterback issue, because it doesn't matter how good a quarterback you have if there's nobody to throw it to.
This day and age in college football, the statistic I'm about to share with you is mind-blowing. Auburn did not have a single receiver that had over 350 receiving yards last year.
Wow.
They had a tight end, and it was barely over, but not a single receiver with more than 350 receiving yards. That's impossible this day and age in football. It's impossible those guys can't make an impact. It's wide open for them.
Still looking for that first 1,000-yard receiver in what feels like 30 years.
Yeah, I mean, that's crazy.
Alabama gets their spring practice underway this week, but before the Tide strap on the pads, the Kalen DeBoer regime couldn't begin without first sitting down with the most important show in the SEC. There's the new capo in T-Town, and hey, that guy looks familiar on the right. Hey, that's Kalen DeBoer with his new coordinators. They were able to sit down with the good folks over at the Next Round Live, Brownie and Company. So, Ryan, you were there, but we'll start with Doug. Does this signify a much more open, transparent, looser public image for the Crimson Tide?
Yeah, I think it's a good start. I just want to see what happens when the criticism starts. And the unfounded, just crazy criticism starts. Then do you keep it that way?
I mean, there's no doubt he approaches it differently. I mean, it's different than the Saban era, and I applaud him for that, not because it benefits us as a show. We did our show from the Alabama football building with the head coach for 30 minutes and his 2 coordinators. That's something that would not have happened in the Saban era, and that's fine. I applaud him because he's his own person, and he doesn't come in and say, just because Nick Saban, the greatest of all time, did it this way, I'm going to do it that way. He's got to be who he is. That's who Kalen DeBoer is.
It hasn't even been 3 months since DeBoer was hired to take this Alabama job, and before he's even coached a second of spring practice, what's impressed you most with the way he's been able to settle into this transition?
Ryan hit on it. I mean, he's his own man. He looks comfortable in every situation. Here's a guy that I see who exudes confidence without any swagger, in that he knows what he's doing. He's proved he can do it there. He can do it here. And he's going to do it his way.
I will say, and this sounds a little contradictory of what I just said, but it's not, the way he's embraced Nick Saban. And Nick Saban is still very much part of this program. In fact, the day we did our show from Tuscaloosa Wednesday, Kane Womack, the defensive coordinator, came to our show straight from his second meeting with Nick Saban, where they're breaking down tape together, looking at personnel that can fit into Kane Womack's system. Nick Saban very much still involved there.
You can always spot the biggest football nerds from who's glued to the TV on the NFL Network in late February, early March for the annual NFL Combine in Indy. And, of course, the quarterbacks are taking center stage. So with Chicago, Washington, and New England all slated to select 1, 2, and 3, with all needing help at the position, tell me the top 3 quarterbacks to come off the board in this upcoming draft.
Caleb Williams, Drake May, and then Michael Penix Jr., who is actually my favorite because of his timing, how he sees defenses. I just think he's going to surprise me.
I think the medical flags are going to hurt him, though, enough that I think Jaden Daniels will go in front of him. 2 knees, and that's tough for Penix because everything else is great, but those teams are freaked out a lot of times by 2 repaired knees. So I would say Daniels in front of Penix.
Staying on the NFL, some incredibly sad news broke just after 3:30 this afternoon. Longtime ESPN NFL reporter Chris Mortensen passed away at 72. Guys, Mort covered the league for over 30 years, well respected. He was a U.S. Army veteran. And just your thoughts on the loss.
Met him when he was at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. I was at Nashville, then Birmingham, and nobody was more helpful with just kind of help a young reporter navigate these NFL draft stories. Before, we had McShay and all this other stuff.
He was an incredibly nice guy, was a weekly guest on our show during NFL season for a very long time, and I got to know Mort well. I appreciate you mentioning that he was a U.S. veteran because he was very proud of that, and he helped a lot of veterans organizations. And his son Alex is a up-and-coming coach and a very, very coveted offensive coordinator at UAB now. So condolences to him, but he'll carry on that Mortensen name well.
Well said. Coming up next, we'll go around the country, play a little pick'em. Don't go anywhere. You're in the zone. Pick'em time will start in Big 12 country. Kansas, the Jayhawks, fresh off a loss on the road to Baylor. Things not going to get any easier for them as they'll head to Houston to take on Kelvin Sampson's Cougars. Pick'em, Kansas or Houston?
You know what you get from Houston, the defense, the physicality, and they'll take advantage of Kansas's lack of depth.
Though Oklahoma had about as good an offensive day on them as anybody has all year Saturday, Houston does not lose at home. Kansas has been bad on the road. Give me the Cougs.
It's arguably the best rivalry in the sport. Duke and UNC, the Tar Heels, kind of flown under the radar, but playing some dominant defense. As for the Dukies, somehow, some way, brave Kyle Filipowski found a way to come back from that Wake Forest court storming a week ago. They made easy work of Virginia. Pick 'em. Who wins the Battle of Tobacco Road?
Where this game being played?
It's at Cameron Indoor.
Yeah, Duke.
Yeah, I watched Duke, Virginia. Speaks is not even here. Neither were the Cavaliers Saturday. Give me Duke. They're playing well right now.
Back to the SEC. Kentucky is about as perplexing as any team in the country. After looking like this might be Calipari's last rodeo, the Cats suddenly look like a Final Four team. And we all saw what Tennessee is capable of doing, coming on the road to take down Alabama last night. Vols and Cats, who do you got?
Tennessee at home. I think they're slightly better.
Yeah, Vol believer. Kentucky's just been too inconsistent. Tennessee's consistent right now. I like them at home.
To the Swamp, where Wednesday night the Crimson Tide will look to stop the bleeding as they'll take on a Florida team who gave them fits inside Coleman Coliseum just a week ago. The Gators lost a close one to South Carolina. They're playing really good under Todd Golden. Real intriguing one for lots of reasons. Tider Gators, who do you got?
Listen, Florida's really good. I mean, this is a tournament team that could go into the second weekend, but I think Alabama bounces back.
Really? Took Alabama to overtime at Coleman. I would like to know if Reitzel is in the game or not. If he's in, I like Alabama. If he's not, I like Florida. That's me on the fence right there.
Let's hope he's back soon. Hey, coming up on The Zone, it's time for the bottom line. Doug on Selection Sunday. Ryan on the ageless wonder that is Rick Barnes, and me on why the most entertaining basketball isn't always the prettiest. It's time for the bottom line, brought to you as always by Moe's, and we'll start with Doug.
Ladies and gentlemen, synchronize your watches because 2 weeks from now, we are embarking on the most thrilling fortnight in all of sports. I'm talking about Selection Sunday, where Alabama and Auburn are assured, Samford is likely, and with a little luck, UAB could be dancing as well. You can have the Super Bowl, the World Series, even the CFP, but minute for minute, the most exciting time in sports is March Madness, especially the first 2 weekends when upsets bust brackets and Cinderella's advance beyond imagination.
Last night, I watched the 802nd win in one of the most perplexing coaching careers in basketball. Rick Barnes is the third winningest active coach in the nation. 37 years he's been a head coach, and 27 of those have ended in the NCAA tournament, soon to be 28. Here's the rub on those tournaments. Of the 27, in only 3 has a Barnes coach team passed the Sweet 16. And there's the problem with Tennessee. That absolutely looked like a 1 seed in Tuscaloosa last night. An incredibly tough team who I believe is the best in the SEC. But the sample size is big enough for me to know. When it comes to bracket time, buyer beware with the Vols.
That's right.
This conference tournament season, while the SEC is chucking three-pointers and the Big 12 and the ACC have playmakers of all sorts of skill levels on the floor, choose instead to watch the boxing match. Of course, I'm talking about the Big East tournament. Why watch Power 5 basketball when you can tune in for a true rock fight? Rock'em sock'em robots on the hardwood. First, we're the first to 50 wins. Small schools from small states battling it out in a war of attrition because college basketball doesn't always have to be pretty. In fact, it's a heck of a lot more fun when it's not. Hey,
Yankee! Get
out of here. Hey, thanks so much for watching our show as always. Again, for Doug, for Ryan, I'm Johnny Kahn, and Speaks will be back next week. Have a great night, everybody.